Hi, this is Mac of Mac's List. Find Your Dream Job is presented by Mac's List, an online community where you can find free resources for your job search, plus online courses and books that help you advance your career. My latest book is called Land Your Dream Job Anywhere. It's a reference guide for your career that covers all aspects of the job search, including expert advice in every chapter. You can get the first chapter for free by visiting maxlist.org/anywhere. This is Find Your Dream Job, the podcast that helps you get hired, have the career you want, and make a difference in life. I'm Mac Pritchard, your host and publisher of Mac's List. I'm joined by my co-hosts, Becky Thomas, and veteran co-host, Ben Forstag, who's filling in for Jessica Black this week. She's on vacation. This week, we're talking about how to let recruiters know on LinkedIn that you're open to new job opportunities. Last year, LinkedIn offered a new option. You can now check a box visible only to recruiters that says you're open to new opportunities. That means recruiters can now search and find people who use this feature. Our guest expert this week is Donna Serdula. She's a nationally recognized LinkedIn expert, and she says you need to do more if you want recruiters to find and talk to you. Donna and I talk later in the show. At Mac's List, we're huge fans of self-assessment. Identifying the skills you offer, for example, can help you get clear about the best jobs for you. Becky has found a new online tool you can use to assess your professional skills. It comes from the U.S. Department of Labor. She tells us more in a moment. Our listener question this week comes from Thomas Weissenberg in Germany. He's about to start a job search in France where he once worked for more than a decade. Thomas wants to know, how can he get his CV in front of leaders who want employees who can work in different cultures? Ben shares his advice shortly. First, as always, let's check in with the Mac's List team. Every week, Becky Thomas is out there searching the nooks and crannies of the internet, and she's looking for websites, books, and tools you can use in your job search and your career. So, Becky, what have you found for our listeners this week?
Well, Mac, recently I discovered a site called Career One Stop, which is, quote, your source for career exploration, training, and jobs. It's from the U.S. Department of Labor. And this stood out to me because often jobs resources provided by the government are sort of a double-edged sword. There's like tons of great data and information that exists but is not clearly organized, and so it takes time to sift through and try to find the info you want. If you've ever been on the Bureau of Labor Statistics website and tried to find some data, you know what I'm talking about.
It can be a maze, can it? And yeah. I say that with kindness because I'm grateful the data's there.
Absolutely. But if you're not, if you're sort of in a crunch for time, or you just don't have the patience to sift through, this new site, well, it's not a new site, but it's new to us. It's a site called Career One Stop, and it seems to be a little bit better than most of those some of the other government resources in terms of user experience and sort of ease of use. So I found a tool on there called Skills Matcher, and it allows you to rate your mastery level of 40 in-demand workplace skills. And it matches your skills to career fields that need those skills. So it's got a really wide range of skills from like business management to biology to public safety and sort of like all over the place. But you rate your own knowledge from sort of beginner to expert, and there's sort of a range in between. And I tried it out. It was actually cool to assess my skills across such a broad spectrum. It kind of made me realize how much I don't know about, but also reminded me what I'm good at. So most categories I was like beginner or less than, but I was able to select advanced or expert in a few categories that I have experience in, like writing and marketing and things like that. And then at the end of the assessment, it takes about like 15 minutes, maybe a little bit less. But you get a long list of careers that match with your skills, and it shows you the job title, average annual wages, amount of education needed, and then the outlook for the future of that career, which I think is really helpful as well. And so I would recommend checking this tool out if you're in the job search, but particularly if you're thinking about a career change or a pivot from what you're currently doing. This is a great place to start because it can be overwhelming to think about all the career options that are out there. And it's helpful to know sort of where your existing skills are in demand so that you can start learning and sort of researching avenues that are going to align with those. So check it out, Career One Stop, and the tool is Skills Matcher, and I will share the link in the show notes.
Well, this is a great tip. I like this one because I know all three of us will talk to job seekers who sometimes are uncertain about what to do next. And they don't even, and if you ask about their short list, they haven't gotten that far. But it seems like this tool could help them create that list, couldn't it, Becky?
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, good. All right. Well, let's turn to Ben, who is filling in for Jessica Black this week. And Ben, welcome back to the show. You were only gone 2 episodes before we brought you back.
It just feels like a lifetime, Mac.
Okay. So you're laboring under a life sentence here on the Max List podcast. No, all right. Well, let's move on. So, Ben, you're here to answer one of our listeners' questions. What do you have in the Max List mailbag this week?
Well, Jessica left me a good one. This one comes from a listener, Thomas Weissenberg. I apologize if I pronounced your name wrong, Thomas.
And I may have mispronounced this in the opening of the show, so forgive me, Thomas, but we're grateful to have your question.
Yes, thank you, Thomas. So Thomas wrote all the way from Bad Neuenauer, Ahrweiler, Germany. Thomas writes, my question is about how to take best advantage of crossing the borders and engaging a new job opportunity. I've lived 15 years in France and I'm currently on a 1-year mission back to Germany. After the summer, I'll go back to Paris, where I've already worked some years ago. Things evolve fast these days, so both my old professional network and my personal experience don't match as good as they did in the past. What I experienced when I first arrived in France was that I worked very hard to become assimilated quickly into the system, despite some of the language and cultural lacking. Still, with every new job application, I had to provide proof of my knowledge. This time, I'd really like to stress my capacity to work in different cultures, to lead teams, and to adapt rapidly to changing contexts. What is your advice in order to overcome the selection process based on diploma equivalencies and to get my CV or my resume in the hands of leaders searching for someone with a more atypical experience? That's a great question. And I think it's our first question from Germany, definitely. Let me start off by stating the obvious. I am not an expert on Franco-German labor markets. So the advice I'm going to give you here, Thomas, is a little bit more broad, and I think it would apply to just about anyone who's trying to jump from one country to another country, especially when there's a cultural and language difference there. And the first piece of advice I'd offer to you is probably not that revolutionary if you've listened to our show before, which is just use your network. So it sounds like you've already spent some time in Paris and you've probably built up a professional network of some type there. And even if these connections aren't really relevant to your new search, or even if they're a little bit outdated, I would reach out to those folks anyway, let them know what you're looking for, and ask if they have any connections who could be helpful. Networking events obviously are a plus too. I imagine there has to be a German expat professional group in Paris someplace, and that might be a great way to get your foot in the door with new opportunities there. This other thing I was thinking about is that Thomas wrote that he's looking to stress his capacity to work in different cultures, to lead teams, and to adapt to rapidly changing contexts. And this is, I think what you're really getting at here, Thomas, is like you're looking to do something a little bit different that you might not have done in the past. So I think it's really important that you proactively frame your past experience in terms of what you want to be doing in the future. Look at all the accomplishments from past jobs and glean from them examples of how you've led teams in the past. These leadership examples don't need to fit perfectly, and they don't need to be a part of your past formal work responsibilities, but they do need to be honest, plausible situations where you previously displayed the ability to do what you want to be doing of more in the future. And then thirdly, I'm just going to offer a few strategic tips here. One would be obviously make sure your resume is in flawless French so that the language fluency isn't a question when the hiring managers review your application. And the other one, and this might be a little bit more of a stretch, is perhaps you want to target German-owned businesses that operate in France, or maybe even French firms that have significant business interests in Germany. These kind of firms might be more receptive to your message and what you're looking to do, which is kind of lead multicultural, multilingual teams across the business. So thanks for your question, Thomas. Becky, Mac, do you have any suggestions?
I mean, I like that last tip. I think that's really smart to sort of think about how you can utilize that, that specific experience in France and in Germany to help some specific organization. I also think that the network is going to be key. Just, getting yourself out there in front of people and, showing them that experience that you have is going to be great.
Absolutely.
CVs are so dry, it's sometimes hard to sort of show that on your CV. So I think the networking piece is going to be key for Thomas.
And I like Thomas's instinct here that he needs to get in front of leaders who are open to people with atypical experience, because many hiring managers, whether they're in Europe or North America, can be very routine and they just are checking off boxes. And I think Thomas is right to think about finding people who are interested not only in skills and qualifications, but experiences outside the norm. And to both of your points about the importance of networking, that's going to be, I think, one of the most effective ways by networking, particularly with groups in France who are on the ground to find those leaders.
Yeah, and I think this speaks to kind of a general rule, no matter where you are in the world, which is, different countries have different hiring practices. Some are more rigid than others, but in general, people are people, and they value that connection they have to another person. That's always going to give you a leg up in the process, no matter what the process looks like. So I don't want to present networking as the cure-all to all of your job search blues, but in some cases it is, right? Like the more you network, the easier everything gets, whether you're jumping from Germany to France or the United States to Canada or anywhere else, I would guess.
Agreed. And speaking of all of those countries, listeners might be interested to know that the last time we checked, Ben and Becky, I think about 25% of our downloads are outside of the United States, aren't they?
Yeah, it's our number one audience is the United States. Number two is Ireland.
Yes, we're huge in Dublin.
We're going to get that Guinness sponsorship soon.
Hello, world.
So, well, thank you all. Thank you, Thomas, for that question. And thank you for all of our listeners outside the United States. And thank you, Ben, for stepping in for Jessica this week. I know you'll be here for next week's show as well, won't you?
You won't let me leave.
So if you've got a question for us, we'd love to answer it on the podcast. Send Jessica an email. Ben has set it up so that it auto forwards directly to him. Write to jessica@maxlist.org, and she'll be back in the studio the week after next. We would love to hear from you, and you can also call our listener line. That area code is 716, and the number is Job Talk. Or post your question on the MaxList Facebook group. If we answer your question on the show, we'll send you a copy of Land Your Dream Job Anywhere. We'll be back in a moment, and when we return, I'll talk with this week's guest expert about how to let recruiters know on LinkedIn that you're open to new opportunities. We live in a digital world, and what we do online can make all the difference in a job search. Consider this. In a recent survey, 98% of recruiters said they use LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter to find candidates. If you're not on these platforms, you're invisible to employers. Yes, I know social media can be overwhelming, especially for baby boomers like me. That's why I built my free online course, How to Wow and Woo Employers Online. In 3 lessons, we show you how to make the most of social media in your job search. You'll learn what matters most to employers who check you out online, how to create and manage social profiles that attract the attention of hiring managers, and how to use your social accounts to grow and serve your professional network. To sign up for this free course, visit maxlist.org/wow. Again, that's maxlist.org/wow. Now, let's get back to the show. Now let's turn to this week's guest expert, Donna Serdula. Donna Serdula is a nationally recognized expert in LinkedIn profile optimization. She's also the founder of Vision Board Media and LinkedInMakeover.com, and she's the author of LinkedIn Profile Optimization for Dummies. With more than 30 writers on her team, Donna has helped thousands of professionals and companies tell their stories and brand themselves successfully on LinkedIn. She joins us today from Delray, New Jersey. Donna, thanks for being on the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Well, it's a pleasure. And we're returning to one of our favorite subjects on the Max List podcast. That is how people can use LinkedIn most effectively. And what prompted this particular interview is there's a new feature out there on LinkedIn that a box people can check to let recruiters know that they're open to offers. Now, I know you do encourage people to use that, but you've also got some other suggestions about how people can let recruiters know they're available. And that's the purpose of our conversation today.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about first a few LinkedIn basics I know you feel strongly about. These are sort of your ultimate do's and don'ts. Donna, what are things that people, before we get into those specific suggestions, should always remember about LinkedIn?
Yeah. Well, you know what? The one thing I think most people tend to, they really don't tend to think about it. But if a recruiter is looking for someone like you, more often than not, they don't know you exist. They don't know your name. And they're trying to find someone like you. And the way they are doing those searches is they're searching by keyword, not by name. And so it's really, really important that if you're a job seeker, or even if you're just open to opportunities, that you really think in terms of what that next opportunity looks like. And how would a recruiter, how would an employer, how would someone in HR describe that role? What are the strengths? What are the core competencies that you should have? And make sure those keywords are infused throughout your LinkedIn profile. Only then can you look for opportunities.
So it's important to know where you want to go and understand how the people who are hiring for those positions, how they describe those jobs. Is that what I'm hearing you say, Donna?
Yeah, absolutely. I always say one of my big tips that I give my clients is, really look out and see what are the job descriptions that are out there for that next great opportunity. It doesn't even have to be a position that's open and hiring. But just find, what's that next opportunity? What would it look like? And find a job description that really closely echoes it. And see how other people, other companies described that job, that title, that position. And find those keywords, and then make sure the story that you tell in your LinkedIn profile is using those strengths, those keywords, those descriptors.
So keywords are important. What are some other tips you have done? I know, for example, one of your basic rules is never cut and paste a resume into LinkedIn.
Yeah, that's true. And that really surprises people. But what I always say is this: if someone finds you on LinkedIn and they really like what they see, so much so that they reach out and they request your resume, and that resume is a one-for-one copy of what they just read on your LinkedIn profile, they're going to be disappointed. They're going to think that that's all you have to offer. There is no more. And so, there should be an echo and there should be similarities. But I always say these documents should build one upon the other. And it should always guide that person to want to reach out, to learn more, and always keep giving more and more information. So they want to bring you in because they know you have more to add, more things to talk about.
Yeah. So that was first on your list of 7 tips for attracting recruiters. Another idea that you share with people is that you encourage them to optimize the headline at the top of their summary. Tell us more about that, Donna. Why is that important?
Oh, you know what? Everyone always uses the default headline that LinkedIn just automatically populates, which is your current job title and your current company. And here's the thing, think of a headline in a newspaper. It should compel you to want to read more. It should give you an idea, a brief idea of what it's all about, that article. And the same thing with your LinkedIn headline. It should compel a person to want to learn more, and it should give them an idea of who you are, what you do, and how you help. And just simply using that job title and company that doesn't compel anyone. And so I always say, use this headline as that chance to really tell that person that you've got something of value to offer and make them want to click to read more. So totally ditch the default LinkedIn headline and really go in and infuse your keywords and give a benefit statement.
And some other tactical suggestions you have, and I love this one, this was number 3 on your list, is using a phone number and an email address in the summary section. Why do you feel strongly about this?
Well, here's the thing, and I think a lot of people don't realize that when you only update your contact information on your profile, it's only first-degree connections who can see that. And so most recruiters are already not first-degree connections to you. And so if they do want to reach out and they don't want to waste an email, make it as easy for them as possible and give that information upfront in your summary. And I actually even say, repeat it throughout. At the bottom of each job description, absolutely state, if you'd like to learn more, please request my resume, and give your email address, give a phone number, make it as easy for these people to pick up the phone and call you or shoot you an email, and do it in a manner where they're not wasting an in-mail message. That's the paid messaging within LinkedIn for people who are out of network. So, make it easy for them to reach out and help you.
And I would add that generally I find when I'm trying to track someone's email down, with a little bit of effort, 10 or 15 minutes, I can usually do it. To your point, if you make it hard for people to find you, and odds are they're not going to invest that 10 or 15 minutes. And you're going to miss out on an opportunity, aren't you?
And you know what? And here's the other part of it, even just outside of LinkedIn. When you're trading emails with recruiters, put your contact information in the signature of your email. So many times people tell me to call them or they ask me to reach out to them, and yet I'm searching high and low trying to find their contact information. Simply putting it in the signature of an email each and every time you're sending out an email to someone, it's just going to make it so much easier for people to reach out.
Agreed. Next on your list is what might sound to listeners like a very basic thing, but it's you say it's really important to use a professional photo as your profile picture. Well, why does this matter so much, Donna?
Well, you know what? It is who you are online, and you would never go on Amazon and buy a product if there wasn't a picture of that product right alongside that listing. You'd think there was something weird, something hinky. And the same thing goes with LinkedIn. If you don't upload a picture, people are going to assume you're not serious. They're going to assume that something's not quite right. And so you want to upload that picture, but you really do want to make sure it's professional and that you look good and you look friendly. A lot of times people try to look serious, professional and serious, and that really translates to angry most of the time. So I always say, dress well, look directly into that camera lens, smile, put some crinkly, wrinkles around your eyes so it really looks genuine. And if it's a clear picture, people are going to resonate to it. They're really going to believe that you're for real, you're genuine, you're authentic. And if you look friendly, they're going to feel much more comfortable reaching out to you.
Another tip you have to attract recruiters on LinkedIn is to outline our career trajectories in the experience section. Tell us more about this. Why is this important?
Yeah, well, you know what, with recruiters, and this is true with hiring managers, this is true with people in HR. A lot of times, if you're on that short list and they're looking at you a little harder to really determine, is this a fit? Is this someone we want to bring into the organization? A lot of times they're going to look at that resume and they're going to look at that LinkedIn profile, and they want to make sure that everything lines up. It's really important. They don't want to see any red flags. And so absolutely include that career trajectory. One, it makes it very clear that you're a real professional and everything that you're stating is true and it lines up correctly. Important. But also, the other part of this is the experiences that you have. These are all chances for you to infuse keywords. And the more keywords you have, the more likely you are to be found. So, really, put out that trajectory. Now, here's the thing. I mean, if you've been in your career for 30 years, you don't have to go back all 30 years, but, really think in terms of, what's applicable to where you're going and what you've done. And maybe that's the last 15 or 20 years, but definitely make sure that it doesn't look like you just didn't come out of nowhere, that you really do have a background in the industry that you're looking to work.
Yeah, it's striking to me how often I see profiles where people might list just their most recent position or their current job, or perhaps they list all of their positions, but it's just the organization and the job title. And it's you wonder when you look at a page like that, why people are leaving so much out.
Well, you know what? I truly do believe it all comes down to it's hard to write about yourself. And it really doesn't matter where a person sits or who that person is. We sit so close to our own strengths, we don't even recognize that they're strengths. And so I always say, if you're struggling, if you really want to get found on LinkedIn, if you really want to make a strong impact and really showcase who you are, but you're struggling to do it on your own, talk to other people, outsource the task. I know it sounds odious, but there are some of us who actually enjoy telling other people's stories.
And speaking of stories, I know you're a big fan, and this is next on your list of tips for attracting recruiters to LinkedIn profiles, is telling your story in an engaging way in your summary section, isn't it?
Yeah. You know what? I absolutely hate those summaries where, they talk about 30 years of upwardly mobile experience and they're an ethical, dynamic professional. To me, it's just so dull and boring. You really do. This is your digital introduction. This is your first impression many times with recruiters. And I believe in really showing the warmth of your personality and making that summary conversational, making it engaging, and telling that story, really setting yourself apart from all of those thousands, I could even say millions of profiles that are just a very dull copy and paste of what one might find on a poorly written resume.
And finally, Donna, on your list is the importance of showcasing a network. And these are the connections that we have on our profiles. Is there a magic number here? Should people have more than 500 connections? Should it be less? And how important is the quality of those connections? And ultimately, why does this number matter to recruiters?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. You need to really look at, how long have you been in your career and the people that you know. I certainly in no way am suggesting that you connect high and low and just connect with everybody. But it is important that every day you are connecting and the people that you're meeting along the way, the people that you've known, the people who are in your industry, that you are connecting to them and you're doing it consistently. And the reason for that is we are our network. And a lot of times opportunities are going to come from that network. They might not be from just a pure application, but people know someone who knows someone who needs someone and you get in through that back door. But if we really want to talk about how LinkedIn works, when a person is searching LinkedIn, they are not searching the entire database of users unless they're doing a name search. When a person is doing a keyword search, they are only searching their LinkedIn network. That's their first degree, their second degree, their third degree, and any group members of groups that they belong to on LinkedIn. That is what they are searching. And so if you want to get found and if you want to find people, it is going to be important that you have a large network. That way you turn up in more searches. Now, this, of course, what I just said is for people who are using the free version or some of the more premium versions which don't allow total access to the database. But, thinking in those terms, if you want to get found, connect to recruiters, connect to people who are, dealing with employment. And that way you get closer to those people who are doing those searches who might be looking for someone like you.
I love that advice because I find it, I expect you do too, that many people have a list of companies or organizations where they want to work, and there's an opportunity once they have that list to identify the hiring managers or the recruiters that work with those firms and begin building relationships with them now, isn't there?
Yeah. And the truth of the matter is, even if a person isn't looking right this very second, they should still be building that network of connections, because you want to dig your well before you're thirsty. It's so important. You never know when you're going to need to rely on the help of your friends and your network.
Absolutely. Well, Donna, tell us what's next for you.
Yeah, well, I'm continuing to write LinkedIn profiles for professionals and executives and entrepreneurs all around the world. People struggle. They struggle to tell their story. They struggle to define themselves. They struggle to brand themselves. And so we work very much focused on that LinkedIn profile and telling the world, who you are and how you help. And when you do go through the process, you're able to better articulate your story. You feel more confident about who you are and what you bring to the table. And when you really shine the light on who you are and the good things that you do, amazing things happen.
Agreed. Well, I know people can learn more about you and your company by visiting linkedin-makeover.com. We'll be sure to include that URL in the show notes as well. Donna, thanks for being on the show today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure. Take care. We're back in the Max List studio with Becky and Ben. What are some of your reactions to my conversation with Donna?
I thought she was great. I thought that she had some really good points just in terms of tactics. I feel like that default LinkedIn headline is key. Adding keywords and adding contact information throughout is really going to help people get noticed. One thing that I feel like I need to research more is sort of how you find the keywords that she mentioned, like how you determine what the keywords are that you want to rank for, and then how to pepper those in throughout without making it look like keyword stuffing from like my marketing brain. I'm like, how do you do that for your LinkedIn profile? So it's something interesting that I think we need to talk about more.
Yeah, I'm guessing it's more art than science. She talked about finding job postings for positions that you would like to have and then studying them.
Finding the keywords
patterns
within those.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so a lot of the same stuff you do for customizing your resume for an ATS system or something like that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But you almost wish, don't you, that there was some tool like Google AdWords that would allow you to plug in the words and then rank their value to hiring managers or employers. And maybe there is such a...
That's $1 million idea, Mac. LinkedIn Keyword Planner. Why does that not exist?
I don't know.
I think we did share a resource a couple months ago when some other guy was doing the resources stuff about...
What was his name?
I don't know. Yeah. He was a weirdo. No, but I think that it like gathered all the job postings that had gone through Indeed maybe, or one of those sites, and basically compiled like these are the words that show up over and over and over again in the most, or like the density of keywords in specific job listings. But yeah, I like this kind of standalone idea, Becky.
Maybe after the show, if you have a moment, we could dig that up and add it to the show notes.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, we can refer some resources.
Well, I will say my favorite thing, and this has been a long-standing suggestion / beef of mine, is putting your contact information in your LinkedIn profile where everyone can see it. As someone who has to like dig through a lot of email stuff to find people's emails sometimes, it is so nice when people just give it to you right there. And I don't think you need to be afraid of spam or anything like that. Just make it easy for people to contact you. And when you do that, people will contact you.
I agreed. And it's a habit I need to adopt in my own LinkedIn profile. I haven't done it, but I am so grateful when I see that. Jessica Black and I are often out there looking for guests for the show, and we can communicate with people via in-mail, but we almost always get a faster response from email addresses because most of us check our email regularly throughout the day.
Yeah, and I actually write at the very first sentence of my summary is the best way to contact me is by email. Here's my email address. And because frankly, I don't go on LinkedIn every day or multiple times a day. And so if people
people don't.
Yeah. And so if you want to get a hold of me, the easiest way and literally the way I will see fastest is email. And so let people know that.
Yeah. I love Donna's suggestions that if I had to pick just one, if people are only going to do one, I would put that at the top of the list. Because I do hear from people all the time who hope to be contacted by recruiters. And yes, you should check that box on LinkedIn that says you're open to offers, but you should do a lot more. And I loved Donna's advice on this topic. Well, thank you, Donna, and thank you, our listeners, for downloading today's episode of Find Your Dream Job. You want to make sure that recruiters and employers know what you have to offer, and you want to be putting your best foot forward online today. And one way you can do that is by downloading my free online course, How to Wow and Woo Employers Online. Go to maxlist.org/wow. Again, that's maxlist.org/wow. And get our best tips on how to do this. And join us next Wednesday when our special guest will be Shelley Elslinger. We'll be talking more about LinkedIn, and she's going to share with us how to tell your story on LinkedIn. Until next time, thanks for letting us help you find your dream job.